Hello and good afternoon. Thank you, David, for your kind invitation. To South of Gas to be with you today. To share our thoughts, and also, this is a great place for me also to see some of old faces. Of my friends. That we share together works in the previous years, and also, to meet with other distinguished guests. For those of you who doesn't know me, my name is Rashid Al-Mari. I'm a director and general manager for South of Gas Company, which is one of the Europe's largest gas importer. And I'll give you an overview on South of Gas in a little while. I'm also here today wearing another hat. Today, if I'm allowed, as a Qatari. So we'll give you an overview on the Qatari LNG sector. Globally, the LNG market is growing with the number of LNG exporting countries increasing, helping to improve overall gas supplies, but also market liquidity, as the development of pipeline and LNG infrastructure is helping to ensure that gas is going to where it is needed most. I should also mention unconventional gas reserve here, not just shale gas, but also coal bed methane, biogas and methane hydrates, which will affect the direction of gas flows around the world as these are exploited. As we have seen with the shale gas sector in the US, it will be the LNG sector that will help to bring these supplies to the market where they are needed most. The benefits of LNG are also reaching some surprising places. I was invited to speak at the Czech Gas Conference last year, as they were very interested in the development of the Qatari LNG sector. As a landlocked country with no LNG facilities, you would have thought that the Czech Republic would be unlikely to benefit from LNG supplies, but with the Qatari LNG set to arrive at the Polish LNG terminal in 2014, and with the improved pipeline connections between Poland and its neighbors, could mean that the Czech Republic could be receiving Qatari LNG in 2 years' time. But back to the UK, why is it an attractive market for LNG suppliers? I'm not going to answer that question now. Well, we all know that the UK domestic gas production is declining, and while gas consumption is also falling, production is declining much more sharply, driving a rise in the gas imports. The improved pipeline connections with mainland Europe have helped the UK access reserves in Norway and the Netherlands, and further afield via the interconnector. But this can only get the UK so far, because it's not just UK reserves that are declining. Reserves from other European producers are also set to decline over the coming decade or so. Although pipeline connections from Europe's nearest neighbors are giving us access to additional sources of supply, as this map shows, much of the world's reserves are too far away to be accessed by pipeline, and that's where LNG comes in. In the UK, the LNG sector has come a long way since the first delivery in 1959 in what looks to me like large fishing boat, shown on the left, compared with the Q-Max vessels like the Mosa shown on the right, which provides enough gas to meet London's domestic demand for a week. The graph at the bottom shows the development of the three main LNG terminals, Isle of Grain, South Hook and Dryden, has in recent years improved the flexibility and reliability of the gas market by adding a new capacity. It's worth noting that not all this capacity is currently utilized, so the LNG sector has the potential to grow its share of the UK natural gas market. So we have looked at how the UK market has changed over the last few years, but what happens from here? Some of you will already have seen this, but National Grid undertook some scenario planning on future gas demand. The gun green scenario at the top assumes a more rapid deployment of renewable energy. At the bottom is the slow progression, which, as its name suggests, is based on a slower take-up of renewable energy. In both cases, the scenario shows a growing role for the LNG shown in the yellow here. Around a quarter of all gas supplies in the UK now comes from LNG, and in the last couple of years, South Hook provided more of this gas than the other two UK LNG terminals combined. For those of you who doesn't know, South Hook Gas owns 100% of the capacity at South Hook LNG terminal in South Wales, which is operated by a company, by an affiliate company, South Hook LNG terminal. We have two businesses. Our base business is that we import LNG from Qatar and sell gas to ExxonMobil Gas Marketing Europe via the gas grid. We have a long-term relation with ExxonMobil Gas Marketing Europe and also with Total Gas and Power, under which large volumes of gas have been delivered into the UK system since the terminal started operations. Additionally, to support the objective of maximizing utilization of the capacity at South Hook Terminal, over the last year or so, we have signed regasification agreement with AGL, Trafigura, ConocoPhillips and Chevron to enable them to bring in their own cargoes when there is a spare capacity at the terminal. Looking ahead, whilst we have one of the highest capacity utilization of any European terminal, we still have sufficient capacity to increase the number of cargoes we can accept by a third, and so welcome discussion with any company looking to bring in LNG cargoes into the UK. The company was established in 2004 and full commissioning of the South Hook terminal took place in April 2010. The terminal has a capacity of 15.6 million tons of LNG, which means that it can deliver up to 21 billion cubic meters into the UK gas grid annually. Last year, South Hook Gas supplied around 15% of the UK's daily gas demand, which is enough to power a third of total UK households. And since launch, we have received 270 LNG cargoes and supplies the UK market every day. Currently, all of the LNG arriving at South Hook Terminal comes from Qatar, which is situated in a pivotal geographic location, which, unlike many suppliers, allows it to serve both the Pacific Basin as well as the Atlantic Basin LNG markets. Qatar's LNG journey really began in 1984 with the establishment of the Qatar Gas joint ventures between the state of Qatar and leading private sector's energy partners, and later on this same joint ventures model was used in the formation of other main Qatari LNG company, Ras Gas. Although the offshore North Field was discovered in the 1970s, the business really only took off when the first agreement with a major buyer was signed in the early 90s. 2010 was a huge milestone for Qatar when it celebrated the achievement of the 77 million ton per annum of a production. Since then, it has signed a moratorium until 2015, meaning that production is likely to be stable at this level for the next few years. The achievement of this target made Qatar the largest producer of LNG in the world and now accounts for around 31% of the global LNG production. The state of Qatar, through Qatar Gas and its sister company Ras Gas, now sells LNG to 23 LNG importing countries around the world. Today, the Asia-Pacific region accounts for roughly 2/3 of Qatar's sales, highlighting the importance of this region, with Europe accounting for most of the remaining 1/3 of the country's sales and the balance going to South America. The reason for all this large-scale investments in the Qatari LNG sector is that Qatar is fortunate enough to have some of the largest gas reserves in the world. This has allowed the country to supply LNG on a global basis and provide reassurance to customers who want sector energy supplies for the long term. And whilst Qatar supplied the majority of the LNG coming to the UK actually received LNG from 8 producing countries last year. And it wasn't just a diversity of LNG producing countries, but also of LNG importing companies, with 13 non-Qatari companies bringing LNG to the UK. A lot of people continue to be concerned about energy security in this country, and a few years ago, I think there would have been good reasons to be concerned. But the UK now has arguably the most diverse gas supplies in Europe, with gas able to arrive here via 3 pipelines and 3 main LNG terminals. On top of that, it still receives around half its natural gas from diverse number of domestic fields, both onshore and offshore, and it is the supply flexibility that gives the UK energy security, because any disruption in supply from one source can easily be compensated by additional supplies from elsewhere. Indeed, the UK receives so much gas that it was able to make record exports to mainland Europe by the interconnector last year. Looking ahead globally, we are going to see more LNG suppliers coming on stream from both conventional and unconventional sources, with a doubling in number of liquefaction plant if all the plant facility comes online. As I mentioned, we are going to see more LNG coming from unconventional sources too. But balancing this out, we are going to see more import terminals built, with potentially a third more terminals coming online in the next few years. So with more sources of supply and places that can receive LNG, it should mean that there is a more liquidity in the market, meaning that there is a closer correlation in prices in different regions, as surplus can easily be redirected or reloaded to other markets. So, is the UK an attractive market for LNG? In terms of supply, the long-term trend is for UK, Norwegian and Dutch production to decline, which should mean rising demand for LNG. And the positive messages from the UK government about the importance of supply diversity means that gas will continue to be an important part of energy mix. The answer to whether you think the UK is an attractive market for LNG depends on who you are asking and over the time frame you are looking. If you are a trader with a vessel on the water, you want to maximize your profit from that cargo, and if the price in one market is higher, then all things being equal, this is the market that you will want to sell it in. For Qatar, the country is such a large natural gas producer that in the short term there is a question about whether the market in one region could bear such a large increase in supply if it was to send all of its cargoes, to the highest price market. The level of the investments in the Qatari LNG sector and the size of their reserves means that they are looking at how to achieve sustainable long-term success, and that is achieved by having state-of-the-art facility and vessels and developing a global customers base to spread your risk. Sure, volumes will go up and down depending on supply and demand, but for Qatar the important thing is to develop long-term relation with their customers and industry partners. And it is this approach which we have also adopted to Southern Gas, where we have a long-term agreement with our suppliers, customers and industry partners, and for our shareholder, their £1 billion investment demonstrate their commitment to the UK for the long term. As regard to demand, whilst overall gas demand is set to fall, it will continue to be a key part of the energy mix for the long term. However, this demands will be different in different sectors at different times, with energy efficiency measures, meaning that there will be a long-term decline in gas. There will be a long-term decline in gas use in residential and commercial sector. In the power industry, whilst good money is being made in coal generation, much of this capacity will be retired in the next years, thanks to the EU's large combustion directive. Together with the old oil and nuclear plant being retired, this will reduce power capacity by 25% and the lower emission compared with the coal and oil. It's a flexibility compared with the renewable and nuclear, and its low build cost and build time should mean that the gas generation will rise sharply over the next few years. In the marine sector, the sulfur emissions control areas being introduced into European waters should mean a rise in gas demands across Europe as ship owners convert their vessel to run on gas rather than the heavy fuel oils. Lastly, in road transportation, we already have some gas used as a compressed natural gas and gas to liquid, but improvement in small-scale LNG technology and LNG refueling stations should see it being used more as a transport fuel. The photo here shows an LNG fueling station in California. Whilst it's likely that the LNG will account for a small percentage of transport fuel, the huge size of the transport sector means that it could become an important growth area for LNG. Overall though, I think that the UK continues to be an attractive market for LNG and for the gas sector in general, but I should point out that there are a few things that needs to be considered. As we all know, there has been a considerable amount of change in the legal and regulatory environments in the energy sector over the last few years. I am sure that we all have our own views on the merits and demerits of specific laws or regulations. However, collectively, the volume of change has increased the investments risk in the UK, and this has stalled investment decision for some energy companies. As the lifespan of energy investment is 25 to 30 years, investors need to be able to accurately assess their return over the life of the asset and not just for the next few years. Secondly, given the scale of investments needed in the UK energy sector over the next 2 decades, if the UK wants private sector companies to invest across the whole energy mix, when it needs to ensure that the market conditions are attractive to investments in all areas and not just favoring one or two. Lastly, whilst we currently have more than enough gas import capacity, as the domestic production continues to decline, further investments may be required in import capacity in the coming decades. That's all from me. Thank you for listening.